Welcome back to my YouTube channel after the summer break. My guest today is Mr. Mark Rossini, who's a former FBI special agent. And with him today, we'll talk about the Saudi connection to 9/11. So the Saudi responsibilities in the attack that happened in New York, Washington, and Shanksville 21 years ago. Thanks for your time, Mark. Thanks for joining me today.
Thank you, Leonardo. Thank you for having me. As you mentioned, I'm a former FBI agent, and for almost half my time in the FBI, I was assigned to the CIA as a liaison there, specifically to what they call ALEC Station, which was a specific station set up in the CIA to address Osama bin Laden and Al Qaeda. And I was at the CIA, of course, prior and after 9/11, the events leading up to it, and was privy to information and knowledge that the CIA had learned about the meeting in Malaysia of the hijackers, and they forbade me and my colleagues, especially Doug Miller, from advising the FBI that the hijackers had onward travel plans that had come to America. And that's where we are talking about today, about that connection between the Saudis, the USA, Omar al-Bayoumi, who was an agent of the Saudi government operating in the San Diego area, and what led to 9/11.
Of course, and about 1 year ago, President Joe Biden signed an executive order that ordered the FBI to release a lot of documents that were previously classified. And those documents gave us a lot of very meaningful information about al-Bayoumi, this Saudi citizen who was supporting two of the hijackers during their time in California. So I would like to ask you, first of all, one of those documents actually confirmed that Omar al-Bayoumi was paid by the Saudi Secret Service. We thought so for a long time, but now that has been confirmed.
Right.
How does this change the whole picture of what we know about Omar al-Bayoumi?
Let me close the window here, just because I don't want the noise. Still doesn't take away the noise from the gardener, but down the street. But anyway,
No problem.
Well, related to the question, how does that change the picture?
Yeah.
Well, okay. Look, it's what we've known all along in the FBI and the CIA, that there was elements of the Saudi government that were funding and providing resources to specific individuals who were agents of the Saudi government operating in the San Diego area. The shame is that we, the FBI and the CIA, had known this information for quite some time. We're not blind to it at all, but it's horrific that it's taken. It's horrific that it's taken 20-something years for the documents to be released to the public, to have them aware now of what we're talking about. The tactic, of course, is not unknown in the respect that the government hopes that people forget, move on, die, and just don't care anymore because their lives are so filled with just trying to survive. They don't really even care about what happened 21 years ago. But people like you and I and others who are dedicated to the truth will never forget what happened and why, and get to the bottom as to how the greatest catastrophe, greatest terrorist attack in U.S. history ever took place. And I know that's your dedication, that's my dedication, to always talk about this until our last breath, so people understand what happened. And I guess the revelation should be shocking to anybody who cares about safety, security, terrorism, because it just goes to show that you really can't rely sometimes on the government to tell you the whole truth, right? And also the politics involved in something like this. And we can go deeper into this as you go along with your questions, and I don't want to go along soliloquy, but there's so many factors surrounding 9/11 happening, if you will, but then the aftermath, the cover-up, for lack of better terms, in order to protect political and economic equities. And that's really the shame of it all, that people have had to die, and everything is shrouded or protected by, well, economics and politics, as far as just letting it all bear out and letting it see the light of day. Light of day is the best disinfectant. And I know, I've met many of the families of the victims, and these revelations as they come out are just more and more painful to them, because the government that they admire and adhere to and love so much now is releasing these items. And it took the courage, and I'm not making a political endorsement here because I'm not political, but it took the courage of President Biden to say enough. Every other president since that day, whether it was Bush, Obama, and Trump, never did anything. Biden was the one that stood up and said, release it. The people have a need to know, have a right to know.
Well, definitely.
You know, it's a the bottom line, okay, and just cut to the chase, okay. Omar al-Bayoumi was a Saudi agent, okay. You can ham and haw and try to split legal definitions and all that BS and try to put up a wall and defend it. He was an agent of the Saudi government. Okay, Soma was Omar Al-Thiri, Al-Tharari, I can't pronounce his name correctly, who was in the actual Saudi consulate in Los Angeles. They were Saudi operatives put in America by the Saudi government to monitor dissident Saudis, okay, and to do whatever bidding the Saudi government wanted. And of course, being the Saudi government, our government, of course, turned a blind eye and let them operate as they could or would or should because of the economic and political realities of the Middle East. That's just the bottom line. So cut to the chase, stop the bullshit, stop the candy ass, pampering. It is what it is. That's who Omar al-Bayoumi was. That's who he still is. And he's in Saudi Arabia, untouchable, and we can't get to him. And he'll never come to America and tell the truth about what he was doing in San Diego. I'm sorry. Go ahead and read other questions.
No problem. I wanted to ask you something, your opinion on something else. Also, British court recently released something pretty important, because al-Bayoumi lived for a while in Birmingham, and they found in his house a video of a party with him and the two hijackers at the two hijackers' place. And while in the video, the two hijackers are very rarely visible, he's very often in front of the camera. And I wonder, how can he be so stupid to not avoid facing the camera so often when he was together with terrorists? Do you have an opinion on that?
Well, of course. Okay, thank you. I mean, he can offer you his opinion, which will be, look, I don't know they were terrorists. They were just two Saudi boys that I befriended, and I let them stay at my house. So why should I be ashamed of hiding my face? They're just two regular guys. That's a great defense to put in court, I guess. But the reality is, not just him. How many other people Leo? You look on Facebook every day that post picture with so and so and so and so. People are careless. They don't think that they're going to get caught. They don't think it's going to happen to them. Or they love the risk. They love that little game of, let me do this. It's basically, it's almost like, I look at that like a semi-confession, quite frankly, rather than anything else. That's what he's doing. It's my opinion, all criminals want to get caught. So that's a semi-confession on his part. And he's playing games. He thinks he's above the law. He doesn't care. He wasn't careless. Subconsciously, he just didn't care. Didn't think it amounted to anything. Or it's just like play a little game, as I said before. Look, he had them at his house, and he was there to monitor them and see what they were doing. The jury, proverbial worldwide jury, is still out as to what exactly was his role. My belief, okay, and of course we can split hairs all day long, was that he was monitoring them on behalf of the Saudi Mabahith, who had made a deal with the CIA that the Mabahith, would report what al-Bayoumi was saying about what these young men were doing in reality in San Diego or in the USA. That's my belief. Others feel that Omar al-Bayoumi was actually an active participant or knew something nefarious was going to take place and was aiding and abetting that effort. You can't have it. Well, you can't have it both ways. All right, but there's a problem in that if that Omar al-Bayoumi knew about the hijackings that were going to take place, or knew something violent was going to occur, because that would break total operational security of Al Qaeda. As we know from interviewing witnesses, Al Qaeda sources that have come in, people that have testified in court, were provided commentary to the U.S. government. Al Qaeda's operational security was very, very strict and very, very regimented, just like really in the military, on a need-to-know basis. So we know from years of analysis and investigation, the only people that really knew what was going to take place was bin Laden, Zawahiri, Mohammed Atef, of course, who died in our retaliatory strikes, all right, Khalid Sheikh Mohammed, and Mohammed Atta, to really know who was the ringleader of the people in America, the group in America. So it would be really far-fetched to say that Omar al-Bayoumi knew about the plans to take place, okay? Because that would imply then a lot of other people in the Saudi government would have taken place. And you can't contain something like that without it getting out, without it leaking.
Absolutely. From these documents released by the FBI, we also know that he was getting his monthly payment from the Secret Service via the ambassador. His name is Bandar bin Sultan Al Saud, who is an ambassador and a prince. So, of course, he's also a member of the royal family. Does this mean that the royal family was aware of what Omar al-Bayoumi was doing in California?
No, not in my opinion, no. In my opinion, look, you had Bandar, who is more American than most Americans. Okay, he's probably raised more time in the U.S. than he was anywhere else in the world. There's no way that Bandar or anybody else in that level of the Saudi government wanted this to happen. No, and he was so close to the CIA in his role, so close to George Tenet and others in the Washington D.C. area, and it was normal in that respect. Normal, but there was nothing nefarious about him, the prince. Okay, this guy is connected to the Saudi consulate, and he was giving him money. This doesn't imply that Bandar was involved again with the knowledge or planning. What we have come to subsequently understand and know, and I have to give full credit to Special Agent Ken Williams of the Phoenix office, who enlightened me to this fact, and I agree with Kenny wholeheartedly. You had and still have more had in the past. You have the Saudi Ministry of Religious Affairs, okay, which in reality is more powerful. We have to take a little tangent here, which is more powerful than the actual royal family of Saudi Arabia. In order to understand what I and you are talking about, people, the listener, you must go back and study history. Not to be cheeky, but go back and watch the movie Lawrence of Arabia. Go back and look at the founding of Saudi Arabia, because it had been prior the Arabian Peninsula under the Ottoman Caliphate. And the British made connection with the Saudi family from Jeddah and helped them push the Caliphate, the Ottomans, out, and renamed it Saudi Arabia. And what gave the Saudis now legitimacy to rule the Arabian Peninsula were the Wahhabis. And the deal they made with the Wahhabis to say, we will follow your strict version of Islam, your Wahhabism, but don't get in the damn way of us making money with the West, the US, and the UK and the rest of the world. Leave us alone, we'll leave you alone. You, the Wahhabis, give us legitimacy on a religious level, because that's more important than anything in their lives. All the riches in the world don't compare to the fear, if you will, because Islam is submission, right? It's the fear of Allah, doing the will of God, right? Going to heaven. That overrides everything, right? So you have the Saudi Ministry of Religious Affairs, which I believe is the one that went off on a wild tangent, that condoned and condemned and supported terrorism around the world and did fund radical clerics around the planet. That is unequivocal, okay? We can talk about it all day long. So you had basically a conflict in the Saudi government. You've got the Mabahith trying to maintain state security, not having terrorism attacks happen within the kingdom and around the world, because, of course, that doesn't do well for the Saudi kingdom itself and its economic and political stability. But you have the Ministry of Religious Affairs that's basically off on a religious zealot tangent that doesn't really give a damn, because when you're so fanatical, everything is justified in the eyes of God. Okay, killing a bunch of people in a nightclub, doing whatever you want to do, it's justified. So you have this competing role of power there. And what I believe is that it's the Saudi Ministry of Religious Affairs that had co-opted people like Al-Firi in the consulate in Los Angeles, but not co-opted, let's say, Al-Bayoumi, who was very, so to speak, Western and was able to blend in society. So I think they basically were spying on each other. And that's why, again, for people who don't know the subject, you got to go back and read a lot of information, read document that you and I co-wrote and posted on the internet about what happened at Alex Station, to understand why Special Agent Doug Miller was not allowed to send his document to the FBI advising them of the meeting in Malaysia and the arrival of the hijackers in America, why I was told to shut up about it, because that would interfere. The FBI would have then been an interloper, would have interfered with the CIA Saudi Mabahith deal to monitor what was going on with these young boys who had come to San Diego, and that their agent, Omar Al-Mayumi, was paid to monitor them, spy on them. But of course, he was a total colossal failure and fuck up and didn't do his job, lazy. All right. And the resulting attack happened. There was no reporting back. So we even had one of the hijackers, Khalil Al-Midhar, leave America when he went over to Saudi Arabia to go, what, actually went to Yemen for the birth of his daughter. All right. He then went to Afghanistan, met bin Laden. We didn't know anything about that. The Saudi Mabahith never reported that to us. When he went back, he had lost his passport. Well, lost, who knows if he really lost it. And he went and he got a new passport in the Saudi kingdom. And the Saudis put a chip, a code in his passport that identified him as a threat to the kingdom. Yet he was able to come back to the United States of America. I leave you with that fact.
Yeah, very
okay.
Clear.
And when I talk facts, when I talk, you and I talk, and I talk facts, and I give interviews on TV, I say these truths and put them out there. And if you don't like it, you don't like it. But a lot of people just look at me like, because they have no answer to it. They go, oh, well, no. Well, answer the fucking question. Give me a reason why he was allowed to come back to the United States of America. No one can. Give me a reason why Doug's memo was not allowed to go to the FBI, advising them that hijackers had tickets to come to America, that the CIA had followed them halfway around the globe to a meeting in Malaysia, and you don't tell the FBI? This is the thing that everybody just looks at me and says, oh, well, no, not oh, well, I want an answer. And I'm not going to stop trying to get an answer until I'm not alive anymore. Because that's why the world is so screwed up the way it is right now. That one event, that singular event, changed the way the whole world operates. It led to that criminal invasion of Iraq based upon a lie that Saddam Hussein has something to do with 9/11. And there are still people in the world that believe Saddam has something to do with 9/11, particularly some Americans who bought that line of shit to justify the invasion of Iraq. It changed the way, it ruined our economy. It changed the way we live. It changed the way we interact with each other. It changed our whole way of life. Created ISIS. What was ISIS? You know, you have Putin, who's a master puppeteer and wanted to play in the Middle East because he wants the oil. Oil makes the world go round. Get over it. That's their reality. Okay. What does Putin do? He injects himself in the Middle East, and he makes friends with the Alawites, which is an offshoot of Shiism, ruler of Syria, Bashar al-Assad. So when he does that, he basically puts himself and wedges himself, actually aligns himself to a degree with Iran, because they're Shia as well. And the people listening to this, you please must first read about Sunni and Shia and the difference. Okay? So Putin injects himself, aligns himself with the Alawites, Shia of Syria, who basically are aligned, of course, on a religious level, with the Iranians. And what does Saudi Arabia do? Well, when we criminally, a disaster, major fuck up, go and invade Iraq, which had a Sunni leader, Saddam Hussein, who controlled a majority Shia population, we topple Saddam Hussein because he tried to kill my daddy or something like that. Dick Cheney goes on TV and lies that it's something to do with 9/11. Right? We create now a mega Shia empire between Iraq, Iran, and Syria. And Putin's laughing and loving it. What do the Saudis do? All those disaffected youth, young, angry Saudi Sunni men who lived in Iraq, who are now expelled, they become ISIS. And who funds them? Saudis and us. And then we begin, of course, not to fight the young freedom fighters, Sunni ISIS fighters, to get rid of them because they create fucking chaos in their caliphate they created. If we would just stop meddling and just step back, my dear departed friend and boss, John O'Neill, who died tragically in the World Trade Center, always said to me, we just got to get out of the Middle East. Just tell us the price you want for a barrel of oil and we'll pay it. You guys live the way you want to live. We don't give a damn. You can fight amongst each other. Just how much do you want for a barrel? And we'll buy it and be gone. Thank you. Have a nice day. But we can't. It's impossible. We have to meddle. We have to have this long-term projection. We have to, because oil makes the world go round. So it's all about protection of our economy and political interests. And then you have to throw in Israel in the mix. We have a moral and legal commitment to protect the safety and security of Israel. So for what happened to them, what happened to the Jewish population in the world is just despicable beyond comprehension. So we had a moral and legal authority to protect the sovereign state of Israel. And I have no objection to that in any way, shape, or form. So, but that also plays into why we're in the Middle East and why we just can't get out. We cannot abandon our ally. We have to support them, which I get. Along with that comes all this other conflict between the Sunni and Shia nations and their centuries-old antagonism toward one another. And then throw in religion. Throw in their religion as far as each one believing that they are superior to one another and to even the world. At the same time, we want that black ooze coming out of the ground because it's light, sweet, and cheap. And that's what keeps our economy going. That's what keeps the world going. It's been about oil ever since day one.
Of course. Well, Mark, you mentioned the Ministry of Islamic Affairs, the one in Saudi Arabia. And one of the documents released by the FBI also tries to explain how come this ministry is so close to Al-Qaeda. They give different possible explanations. One of them is that Al-Qaeda infiltrated the ministry somehow, or that they might be allies because they have either interests or enemies in common. What do you think? What are your thoughts about this?
Well, your question is my answer. It's 100% correct. It's unequivocal that they used each other for their own warped religious ends, and they feed on each other. They cannot survive without each other. And you get somebody who's, let's say, in a government position who is radical or fanatical, that even makes it, more powerful of a toxic cocktail. So, of course, Saudi Ministry of Affairs had to have known, or wink, wink, nod, nod, turn a blind eye to funding. Because remember, the money comes into the Ministry of Religious Affairs, okay? And that money then is fed around the globe to radical imams who preach the radical form of Wahhabism. And then, of course, that money filters to Al-Qaeda. And then talk about the NGOs and non-governmental agencies that were set up around the world, the charities that were set up under the auspices of the Ministry of Religious Affairs, which then essentially instructed people when they made their tithe to particular charities which were funding Al-Qaeda. So, of course, it's just a neat little perfect relationship that spelled disaster. 100% agree.
Let's go back to another topic you touched previously. Something that Ken Williams told me there is that probably somehow the royal family also has to give some support to the terrorists in order to keep at bay their will to overturn the Saudi government. And this is partially confirmed by one of the documents released by the FBI, because a person very close to Omar al-Bayoumi was a guy called Omar Kadib, who was an advocate for overturning the regime, the Saudi
the Saud, the House of Saud. Right.
Does it make sense, in your opinion?
First of all, whatever Ken Williams tells you, you can take to the bank and believe.
I know.
And I have no doubt about Ken's analysis and assessment of the situation. So if that's what Ken is telling you and what he believes, I have to go along with it. I have to go 100%. I cannot offer any alternative to that. It would make sense because sometimes you make a deal with the devil, right? You don't want to do it, but you calculate and you think you're going to be smarter than the devil. You think you can maybe so the House of Saud said, all right, we got to do it, or maybe it look like we're doing it, because in the end, these screwballs can overthrow us. Because once we lose the legitimacy of the Wahhabis, once we lose the legitimacy, so to speak, that the Ministry of Religious Affairs gives us to rule, then we can't rule. So we gotta go along with what they're saying.
Well, Omar al-Bayoumi is not the only problem we have here with Saudi Arabia, because at the beginning of this year, the alleged 20th hijacker, a guy called Mohammed al-Qahtani, who's also a Saudi citizen, was sent back from Guantanamo to Saudi Arabia in an effort to try to empty the prison so that it can be eventually decommissioned sooner or later. Of course, this sparked a big controversy because we are sending back to Saudi Arabia a terrorist. Well, I'm saying we, but I'm not American. But by the way, you understand what I mean. What do you think about this decision by the Biden administration?
Well, that's a very complex issue. And some listeners say, what do you mean it's complex? He's a terrorist. That's very true. But at the same time, we're going to keep people in Guantanamo forever. I guess maybe we could. But perhaps I do not know, Leo, but perhaps he's in a Saudi jail now. We just don't know.
He should.
I would love to. He should be, and maybe he is. I don't know what the condition is of his release and what the Saudi government said what they could do with him. Maybe after 20 years, he has had time to reflect and think about his prior evil ways or intended evil ways. And perhaps he can provide some insight and intelligence to his own government. Perhaps he did not want to speak to our government and provide information, but maybe over there they might have a crack at him, and they may be able to get him to talk, and he may come around. But it would be a I told you so. If we find out in a year or two time, or 5 years or 10 years time, that he's involved in another terrorism attack. That is a very, very complex question that. I have mixed feelings about it. In many respects, keep him in Guantanamo forever. But at the same time, maybe we could learn something from him. Maybe he goes back to Saudi Arabia, maybe he's speaking. I just don't know.
That's a very, very good point. Well, something very interesting that happened a few weeks ago, al-Zawahiri was killed in Afghanistan, and he was in a zone in Kabul controlled by the Taliban. Does this mean that the Taliban are giving shelter to Al-Qaeda again? Are we going back to the 90s here?
Yes. Yes. They can't help themselves. Okay? Religious zealots are religious zealots. They cannot help themselves. We get out of Afghanistan, which we should never have been in the first place. Our original mission and the aftermath of 9/11 attacks, go in there, attack Al-Qaeda, try to kill bin Laden, drive them out, okay? And then get the hell out of there. But we didn't do that. We have to build a nation. We've got to come in and conquer. Well, we didn't. You know what? None of these policymakers study history. And if you fail to study history, you keep repeating the same mistakes over and over and over again. And at the end of the day, you go, oh, I should have listened to history. Because you think you're going to change it? No. Impossible. It's not our world. It's not our culture. The problem with the West, and I mean, from Western Europe all the way over to the coast of California, we think that the whole world wants to live like us. They all want to have a car and a villa, and they want to. No, they don't. Then we cannot build a nation. We cannot force people to be westernized. We have to recognize there are different cultures, different ways of being. We cannot nation build. Okay, we failed. We went in there. We failed to get bin Laden. We killed a lot of Al Qaeda. We killed a lot of Taliban in that invasion. But then we should have gone. But we said, oh, let's just stay. This place is nice. It has a lot of minerals, strategically right next to the Soviet Union or Russia. All right, we'll stay. Bad mistake. Horrible, horrible mistake. So once we left, well, of course, the Al Qaeda elements come right back. So, and there's nothing we can do about it.
But this means they can plan another attack, like they did 20 years ago.
No, I think no. No. It would be almost virtually impossible now, in my opinion, for another attack like 9/11 to happen. For many, many reasons. Yes, we have a lot more resources at our hand right now as far as intelligence gathering. We have better coordination between the agencies and the government. National Counterterrorism Center, CIA, and the FBI coordinate more. It's not just Doug Miller and Mark Rossini over at the CIA. It's 400 other people now. So you can't keep something like that, what happened in Malaysia, in a bubble. Impossible. We have a lot more strict security measures, however arduous and inconvenient they may be. People are screened more. Intelligence is passed more, particularly when they're flying. What we cannot prevent is the lone wolf, the so to speak lone wolf. I hate that expression because everybody jumps on the bandwagon about it. But that person who has a psychotic idea in their head and they go out and do something, whether it's taking an automobile or a truck and running down people, or getting a machine gun. You can buy one in America in 5 seconds, or you can get machine guns anywhere in the world practically, from any country, the black market, and commit destruction. That we cannot stop in any way, shape, or form. Big Al Qaeda plots, if you will, like 9/11, we have a very good chance of preventing them because our intelligence gathering is that much refined and better now. But we will never, ever be able to 100% say that we could obliterate terrorism. So will another attack emanate from or be planned from Afghanistan? Perhaps. Perhaps there's a communication. Perhaps there's somebody that has a friend there. But it's what I'm driving at. An Al Qaeda planned attack on the scale we saw in 9/11, I do not believe could take place from anywhere else right now. But it's that lone actor that we have to be afraid of.
Of course.
And we will always be in fear of that lone actor. And that's what gives, the police and the intelligence services their biggest scare. Because, it's action is quicker than reaction. Okay. And, it's funny, people always say to me, a cop walked up to my car and he had his hand on his gun. I said, well, yeah, because he doesn't know who you are. He doesn't know if you just came from a murder scene, that you just killed somebody, that you're speeding while you're speeding. He doesn't know he or she doesn't know who you are. That's why they have their hand on their gun, because you, if you're a psycho killer, have already decided that you want to shoot them as they approach the window. Okay, so they have to be ready. Action's quicker than reaction. So in many respects, that's what the police in particular or locals are more afraid of, that thing that they can't stop or prevent because it can happen at any time, anywhere, and you have to react to it. And that is a very, very hard thing, I think, even mentally to live with. Like every time you have like a big event, let's say Times Square, in Italy, you have a gathering, let's say for New Year's Eve or a Christmas market that's going to be coming up in a few months. This gives the police a tremendous amount of fear because somebody just walking in could just decide to do something in the name of Al Qaeda, in the name with a religious connotation, a religious zeal, if you will. That's the biggest problem. I remember in the wake of the Bataclan attacks, speaking to a European intelligence official, police official, and he said to me, I go to bed at night worrying about where 4,000 people are sleeping. 4,000. I worry about them. I looked at him and I said, 4,000? He said, yeah, 4,000. I said, what about their friends? He said, I don't even want to think about that. I don't want to think of the people that I don't know. I know I have 4,000 people that I worry about that are radical, that are crazy. It's also think about this. In the wake of the Bataclan attacks, what did the French government do? The French government said essentially to the French police, the French National Police and the Internal Intelligence Services, said, look, you have carte blanche to go and raid the homes of all the people that you have under investigation. Anybody have an open file on, a jacket, one piece of paper in the file, you go in and raid their house, go and get them. And they did. So we got it. And they did. And what did they recover? Look at it. It's in the news. How many arms and weapons they discovered around the country. They even uncovered a RPG, surface to air missile, shoulder held, SAMs, what the hell it is. So you don't know what's out there. It's that fear that people are harboring, that they're ready to attack. So yeah, we have, go back to your original question, Al Qaeda back operating in the safety security of Taliban controlled Afghanistan. I get it. But for me, I worry more about that person that we don't know. The quote Donald Rumsfeld, I'm not a big fan of, you don't know what you don't know. And that's the fear.
What do you think the U.S. government should do to frame now Saudi Arabia and hold them responsible for what they did on 9/11? Is this executive order enough? Probably not. What else should be done?
Look, what needs to be done, just 100%, get Omar al-Bayoumi on an airplane back to America and answer questions truthfully about his actions. Just start with that. That will show me their one act of responsibility. Okay. Put Omar al-Bayoumi on an airplane and al-Thiri as well, al-Thirari, put them back on an airplane and subject them to questioning and tell them that they have to answer truthfully and let the chips fall where they may. That's what has to happen. That's the first step. Anything other than that is a waste of your time and mine. Because in every single case, whether it's a petty misdemeanor or a terrorism attack, there's that one point, that one dot in the timeline of life where the crime took place, happened, was launched. And those two, their actions in San Diego, that's the point where we need to go from. That's it. That they have to say to FBI agents, to a grand jury, what they were doing in San Diego and LA respectively, and why. Talk about the day that they arrived, that the hijackers, Al-Hazmi and Al-Midha, arrived at Los Angeles airport. What were your actions on that day? What were you doing? What was your assignment? We need to know that.
I totally agree with that.
So, you said holding the Saudi government responsible. Again, this is where I have a conflict with other people who feel very passionate about this. I do not believe the Saudi government knew about the 9/11 hijackers and the attack. As far as the House of Saud, the king, the princes, that there's no way that they could condone or want that to happen because of the reverberation, the effect upon them. No. It was the Saudi Ministry of Religious Affairs and the zealots in that organization. We need to get Omar al-Bayoumi and al-Thierry back in America to answer the questions truthfully. But that cannot and will never be done, because that would unravel and then point to people perhaps in the kingdom that were supporting terrorism. Go back to Muhammad Jamal Khalifa, my very good dear friend Muhammad Jamal Khalifa, and I say that tongue in cheek. Muhammad Jamal Khalifa was bin Laden's brother-in-law, and he was responsible for funding the Al-Qaeda presence and groups operating in Southeast Asia, particularly in the Philippines, the Moro Islamic Liberation Front, and the Abu Sayyaf group. Okay. Muhammad Jamal Khalifa kept a ledger on his computer of all the people in the kingdom who gave him money. Now, whether they knew what they were giving him money for is a different story. Okay. Sure. He had a ledger of who was giving him money. After 9/11, we had an operation mounted with the CIA and FBI jointly in order to lure and capture Muhammad Jamal Khalifa. When I say my good friend Muhammad Jamal Khalifa, it's because I spoke to him on the phone once. He called me from Saudi Arabia. Well, actually, the author Lawrence Wright, who was in Jeddah doing the research for his book, The Looming Tower, called me from Saudi Arabia on Muhammad Jamal Khalifa's phone. It's in my document, which I'm going to send out today on Twitter again. And he then put Muhammad Jamal Khalifa on the phone with me, and we spoke, which is basically he wanted to talk. They wanted to meet. He wanted to let me know that he wasn't a bad man, and that Larry told him that I was an agent that he could trust, and that I was a good guy, and I wasn't like the rest, whatever that meant. And we tried to come up with a meeting place, because I knew that we wanted to lure him, to capture him. So I was trying to get him to come to Western Europe where I could meet him. But he said, no, you come to Saudi Arabia. And of course, we asked the Saudi government, which I think was just window dressing on the CIA's part, if I could go over and interview him with another special agent, Mike Driscoll, who's now the director here in New York. And the Saudi government denied it. Well, the CIA told the Saudi government denied it. Of course, they would never let him be interviewed. But finally, after some time, Muhammad Jamal Khalifa left the safety and security of Saudi Kingdom. I think it was in 2005, ended 2005, or in 2006. And he decided to go to Madagascar, where he had a mining operation going on in the south of the country. And he had emailed me 7 days before, or 2 weeks before his travel. He emailed me and a lawyer and 2 reporters. There was like 4 or 5 people on his email. I still have the email. And he said, wishing you all a very happy new year, Jamal. But he flies to Madagascar. You can Google this. And within 30 minutes of his arrival, he's machine gunned to death as he arrives at his mining camp. He had $30,000 in his pocket. And the only thing taken from him was his computer. Not the $30,000 in his pocket. His computer.
Okay.
These are facts.
Yeah.
You tell me. Okay. So will Omar Bayoumi and Ferrari, whatever his name is, ever get to America to answer questions truthfully? No. We haven't even begun to talk about Operation Encore. Yeah. That's a whole nother story, which we could go on for hours about that. But the short reality is that hijackers are going to come back to America, do it all over again on the 10th anniversary. And the FBI knew where they were coming and the airplane that they were coming on. The CIA warned the Saudis that the FBI was going to arrest them because they felt they had a duty to, whatever that means. And the hijackers never got on the airplane to come to America to be arrested by the FBI, where we had indictments for them.
Of course.
So you tell me. It's all politics, all about economy and oil. Nothing more, nothing less. But I'm the bad one. I'm the evil one, right? Because I speak about this stuff, right?
And never embarrass the Saudis.
Exactly correct. Like we're saying, the FBI never embarrassed the Bureau as well. But you know what? You can't take the heat, get out of the kitchen.
Yeah, because their power on us is too strong. So that's not what we want to do.
Let the chips fall where they may when something happens. Okay. Right, wrong, or indifferent. And we need to have this come out. But all we need to know about 9/11. I know I talk a lot, so you can edit it down to this.
No, it's okay.
Mayumi and Ferrari in America to talk. And the people at the CIA who forbade me and Doug Miller from passing information on, they need to confess as to why I was told to shut up and Doug's memo was not sent. That needs to be done. And that was never done. And we all just kind of go, oh, yeah, I forgot about that. That never happened. In the history of American jurisprudence, how do you not put a witness in the grand jury and ask them questions?
Sure.
You put one guy in front of the committee behind a curtain who basically lied, had selective memory, okay? And then one other person who was hid in Afghanistan, all right, who was away from the committee and couldn't be interviewed. And we kind of just let that go. Just pitiful and shameful. Pitiful and shameful. It's disgusting. Disgusting what people get away with. People lie, blatantly lie. And I love George Tenet, but I'm sorry, George, you did not tell the truth in front of the 9/11 Commission. Okay? You did not. Even Governor Tom Kean has said it. But why don't we double back and say, what's going on here? Because it's politics, it's the economy. It'll blow over. Other things, because people are just too caught up in their lives trying to keep a mortgage payment and the electricity on to worry about something that happened 20 years ago. So we just had 21 years ago. So we happily just mow along, go along, and hopefully we'll forget. Everything will become declassified in maybe another 30 years when they believe that all the people that were involved in the incident are dead and no longer have a connection to it, or they can't be any fallout. I plan on living long enough to see that declassified and talk about it.
Same here.
Yeah.
We'll be doing that together again.
Thank you.
Well, Mark, many thanks for your time and for your very precious explanations and for offering us your views and your thoughts about this. And I promise we will do all that is possible in our hands to keep the memory alive and to keep the attention on Omar al-Bayoumi and what he did in the years to come. Many thanks, everybody, for watching this, and see you all next time. Bye-bye.